Book of Serenity, Case 67. The Avatamsaka Sutra's Wisdom. Preface to the Assembly. A speck of dust contains the 10,000 shapes. A single thought is endowed with the 3,000 realms. How much more so a great man crowned by heaven and standing upon the earth, a sharp one, who, when you speak of the head knows of the tail, don't disregard your very own spirit and bury your family treasure. Main case. Attention! In the Avatamsaka Sutra, Shakyamuni Buddha says, "As I now see all sentient beings everywhere, they're endowed with the Tathagata's wisdom and virtue. But because of deluded thoughts and attachments, they do not realize it. All beings are endowed with the Tathagata's wisdom and virtue, but because of deluded thoughts and attachments, they do not realize it. Here's Shakyamuni's moment of awakening, the historical Buddha's moment of awakening, 2,500 years ago, which we recall at this time of year in Rohatsu. And we're in Rohatsu season now. It's only a few days away, but most of you will be at work probably on the actual day itself. The 8th of December we mark Rohatsu, Bodhi Day, the day that Shakyamuni had his great awakening. And Shakyamuni in that moment sees that all things have enlightened nature, that all beings have Buddha nature. All beings are Buddha. But we just have to wake up to the fact. We just have to become aware and move beyond those delusions and attachments which hide our own true selves from ourselves. So we remember Shakyamuni's enlightenment under the Bodhi tree at this time of year in Rohatsu. And we had a session last year in Jampaling to mark Rohatsu, and was anyone there? Yeah. A few of you were there. It was a beautiful time. The snow fell. We went to bed the first night after the retreat, and we woke up and there was snow everywhere. And it was like everything had been made new, you know. It was really, really magical. And of course everything is made new at every single moment. Every single moment we arrive at it for the very first and only time. Like this moment. And in our practice we find a way to become attentive to this moment. In the mythology and stories of Buddhism and of Hindu cultures actually, Vedic cultures, there's the great Undumbara flower which flowers every 3,000 years, once every 3,000 years. And this flower is so rare and precious that it flowers only once every 3 millennia. But this moment doesn't come back. It never returns, ever. So how much more precious than the Unjumbara flowers this moment? So how do we see the truth? How do we see reality? Well, that's our practice. That's the practice of Zazen, of Shikantaza, of seated meditation. That's what Shakyamuni Buddha was doing under the Bodhi tree when he had his awakening that we celebrate at this time of year, when we could be out doing Christmas shopping, eh? on a Sunday. Out buying things that Santa Claus has to produce under the tree. Under the Bodhi tree. So, where does this practice come from? This practice that saves our lives, really. This practice which gives us back our life is handed to us over many generations, from person to person, from the ancestors. And for that, we feel gratitude. We can't do this on our own. We need those that came before us, who are present here now. They are here now. As the past becomes the present, as the present becomes the past, as the future becomes the past, as the present becomes the future. The tradition is atemporal. The ancestors are here now as we practice. So we feel gratitude for this inheritance from Buddha, from Shakyamuni, from Siddhartha, who had his great awakening, from the 7 Buddhas before Buddha, from Shakyamuni transmitting to Mahakashyapa, and from Mahakashyapa transmitting to Ananda, and from Ananda transmitting and transmitting and transmitting up to our day, up to our time, over 2,500 years later. So this activity that Shakyamuni was engaged in under the Bodhi tree, we know from the Pali Canon that Shakyamuni realized he had a kind of a spontaneous awakening when he was a child, sitting in a rose bush. His father was working nearby in the fields, and Shakyamuni as a child hid in a rose bush and was kind of hiding and staying very still. By being quiet and still, he began to feel peace, deep peace and joy, spontaneously. And when, after his many years trying to study with very adept yogis and spiritual practitioners, he spent many years following a very austere and difficult path of near starvation indeed, until he realized, no, this is going nowhere. I must follow the middle way. The middle way. And he remembered that time when he was a child sitting in the rose bush, and something happened then. Something happened by remaining still and quiet. Something happened. So he vowed to do that again, and he sat under the tree until his great awakening came. So what is this practice that we do? And where does it come from? Well, it comes from this moment that we remember in Rohatsu. Some people think that it's innately human anyway. It emerges in different cultures and different manifestations. The speculation that it comes from hunting, that hunters would sit still and wait. If you sit still and wait, something will reveal itself, something will appear. If you just wait, something comes. Don't move. Stay still. Bang! There it is. You have to jump then very quickly when it arrives. It's a stag or something, I imagine. Sorry about that. So yeah, you can imagine it's innately human to do this in some way. This method of no method, as the Chan master Shunyen likes to call it, Shenyen likes to call it, the method of no method, has a number of characteristics. And it's first articulated well by Hongzhi, the Chinese master, Chinese Zen master Hongzhi, who was born in 1091. And Hongzhi's writings articulate the practice very clearly in a way that is based on earlier writings, and in a way that Master Dogen in the 12th century, in the 13th century, in 1227 onwards, he picks up and brings this practice to Japan, and that's when it becomes Zen. So Master Dogen is working on his writings are founded on a very deep and ancient tradition. So what is this practice? This practice is shikantaza, just sitting. Just sitting. In the Chan tradition, it's called silent illumination practice, or serene illumination practice. Shikantaza, just sitting, unlike other forms of meditation, doesn't try to visualize anything. It doesn't try to repeat a mantra. It doesn't focus on a candle flame, a sutra, the breath. Doesn't. The breath is often used as a way to begin, or a body scan. But this is just a way to enter the practice. The practice itself has no stages and no final destination. There are not stages of attainment in shikantaza. So in Tibetan traditions, for example, you will go through stages until you reach what we do. Okay? And some Tibetan practitioners are surprised that we go straight into objectless meditation, to shikantaza. Because in the Tibetan tradition, like in Dzogchen or Mahamudra meditation traditions, that comes after a lot of preparation. But in our tradition, we go straight to shikantaza. So as we sit shikantaza, we are aware of the body sitting there. That's all. We can begin by bringing our attention to the breath to settle ourselves, or we can, from our head to our toes, relax our body in a body scan, which is a very well-known meditation technique. But once we've settled, we let that all go, and we just sit. And whatever emerges in our field of experience, we just observe it coming and going. So we just bring our awareness to the physical body sitting there in totality. No special part of our body, but the totality of our body sitting there is what we're aware of. Not just the breath, not just our hands, but the entire physical presence of ourselves sitting on the cushion. And everything that emerges in our mind and in our hearts. And without favour or attachment, whatever comes, we let it come, and whatever goes, we let it go. We're just sitting. This is Shikantaza. And we need worry about nothing else. We have no goal, we have no object, we have no desire for progress. We are manifesting Buddha nature. So, it's radically different to everything else in our lives. Everything in our lives, we're looking for something. Everything is goal orientated. We want to be fitter, happier, more productive. Thank you, Radiohead. Thank you, Radiohead, for that. Fitter, happier, more productive. We want to be happy. We want good relationships. We want our life condition to be good. We want that pain to go away, that anxiety, that depression. We all come to practice for different reasons. And that is fine. They are the gifts of our lives, these difficulties that bring us to practice. But in our practice, it is essential that we abandon all goal-orientated thinking. That we're not trying to achieve something in our practice. Because that's just more attachment. It's just more chasing and searching. In our practice, when we sit on the cushion, we arrive at the present moment. We stop searching. We stop chasing. And everything comes to rest. Everything. If enlightenment were out there in the future for us, then we will never be enlightened. Enlightenment is here and now. Liberation is here and now, and liberation is not separate from your practice. Practice and enlightenment are one. Practice and enlightenment are one. So we manifest Buddha when we sit Zazen, when we sit Shikantaza. We manifest our Buddha nature. And we come empty-handed. We come with nothing to Zazen. So, some people say, don't sit Zazen, let Zazen sit to you. You relinquish everything. You let go of everything. And this practice, we sit, just sitting, aware of the self, just sitting, and everything that comes up. And then what may happen is we may forget ourselves sitting. That we're no longer conscious of our physical body sitting there, really. And we begin to become conscious of the environment. And when that happens, then we are conscious of the environment in its totality. So we don't focus on the sunlight or the rain or the flowers or the tatami mats. We allow reality to present itself in totality. And we begin to perceive that our true body is the body of the environment, of all things. Our true body is the body of all things. and we just sit there. The entire universe, that is us, and we are it, sitting there as one. And this may emerge in practice, or not. It's not important. The only thing to do is sit, just sit. Here we're still conscious of the self. It is, I am the universe. But when there is no I anymore, then we're talking about something beyond words. We're talking about enlightenment. We're talking about awakening. When even the self is not present anymore. In the sitting of Zazen, the sitting of Shikantaza. Chan Master Shenyan really presents this in stages. First, relaxing from head to foot. Second, entering Shikantaza, the whole body just sitting there. Third, the environment. Fourth, he's entering this new stage. You are very calm and stable in the present moment, then you can let go of that present moment too. Pure awareness itself. Now, you are not aware of the body or the environment. You are just staying with this clarity in and of itself. You know the body is still there, that the environment is still there, but you have stopped contemplating either of them. This is the contemplation of emptiness. Experience of time will alter. A very short period of time can be experienced as a very long time, or a very long period of time can be experienced as an instant. May I recommend Chan Master Shenyan's The Method of No Method, which is the Chan practice of silent illumination, which really becomes Dogen's practice after he goes to China in the 13th century. So this is the practice of silent illumination. And its background is the early Chan teachers. So the teachings that Master Dogen would have encountered in China in the 13th century would have come from Bodhidharma on through the transmission of the line. So Bodhidharma, 5th or 6th century, brings Buddhism to China from India, where it starts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 generations after him, the 6th patriarch, Guineng, in 638 he's born. 2 generations after him is Shito. 3 generations after him is Dongshan, Chao Dong, where the name of the school gets it's named after him, the Chao Dong School, which becomes the Soto School in Japan. Soto, Tozan is his name in Japan, Dongshan, so Tozan, Soto. And then quite a few generations after that again is Hongzhi, and 4 generations after Hongzhi, I think it is Dogen. So it's, Dogen is already writing and inspired by someone that was dead for 200 years when he's writing in 1227. So we're talking about, someone around in the 1800, 1860 for us, that type of time distance. It's a long time beforehand, and that's only Hongzhi. Like Shito is 700 he's born, so this is a millennia and half before, you know. So let's look at Sheetal's famous, one or two of his famous poems where we get our tradition, where we get our practice from. Song of the Grass Roof Hermitage by Master Sheetal, born in 700. I'll just dip in here and there. Just sitting with head covered, all things are at rest. All things are at rest. Thus this mountain monk doesn't understand at all. Living here, he no longer works to get free. Some of the essential things already we see in Song of the Grass Roof Hermitage. Just sitting with head covered, all things are at rest. We let everything come to rest. Thus this mountain monk doesn't understand at all. So it's not about this. It's not about intellectual understanding. It's not about how smart you are or how dumb you are or what books you've read. It's about Zazen. It's about the direct experience of reality. Living here, he no longer works to get free. We have arrived at the moment of our liberation, when we take our cushion, when we sit in Zazen. Turn around the light to shine it within, then just return. The vast, inconceivable source can't be faced or turned away from. It cannot be faced and it cannot be turned away from. We are totally immersed in awareness, in the truth, in the Dharma, like a fish in an ocean. Let go of hundreds of years and relax completely. All your karma, all the weight of the world that you carry, all the wounds and disappointments, all the pain and suffering that you've encountered. Let go of hundreds of years and relax completely. Open your hands and walk innocent. If you want to know the undying person in the hut, don't separate from this skin bag here and now. So, it is at hand. The truth is at hand. Your liberation is at hand. We see in Sheetal's Harmony of Difference and Equality, another foundational poem which in the tradition, these poems are recited in Zen monasteries very frequently in Japanese. Grasping at things is surely delusion. According with sameness is still not enlightenment. Grasping at things is surely delusion. This is the insight of the Theravadan tradition, the original wave of Buddhism, the way of the elders, where they see grasping and craving and chasing needs to be cut at its root as you renounce the world in a way. You renounce the world. You enter the path of liberation from the Theravadan point of view. But this is not a Theravadan text, this is a Mahayana text. So we re-enter the world. We do not follow that way. So grasping at things is surely delusion. Next line is the Mahayana. According with sameness is still not enlightenment. So just entering this realm of undifferentiated enlightenment, of sameness, no, that still isn't enlightenment. Because the Bodhisattva, the awakened being, moves freely between the worlds of the ordinary everyday and the ultimate. So we re-enter the world. Light and dark oppose one another, like the front and back foot in walking. Each of the myriad things has its myriad, expressed according to function and place. Phenomena exist, box and lid fit. So we're not giving up the ordinary life that we live in the world. Phenomena exist. We don't enter the realm of emptiness only. We see Dongshan then, a couple of generations after Shito, in his Song of the Precious Mirror Samadhi, his teachings, the Dharma of thusness. Again, we see this idea that it's not intellectual. The meaning does not reside in the words, but a pivotal moment brings it forth. Just to portray it in literary form is to stain it with defilement. But he also adds, it is not beyond words. If you want to follow the ancient tracks, please observe the sages of the past. So some of these themes, some of these essential teachings, re-emerge for Hongzhi, who Master Dogen, the founder of the Soto school, sees as the most important teacher, really almost before him, as a great Buddha. So this silent illumination practice, Hongzhi writes about it more than anyone else and articulates it in his life. The field of boundless emptiness is what exists from the very beginning. This is the idea of Buddha nature. You already have Buddha nature. You already have what you're looking for. Which refers to K67 of the Book of Serenity, which I opened with, which Shakyamuni said, all beings, he says, at his moment of enlightenment, all beings are originally enlightened, originally awakened. This is not the Christian teaching, all beings have original sin, okay? In fact, it's the contrary in many ways. All beings are originally enlightened. And this is what Hongzhi is saying here. The field of boundless emptiness is what exists from the very beginning. You must purify, cure, grind down, or brush away all the tendencies you have fabricated into apparent habits. This is the psychological process of liberation, which some people do in therapy, psychotherapy, for example. Then you can reside in the clear circle of brightness. The practice of true reality is simply to sit serenely in silent introspection. When you have fathomed this, you cannot be turned around by external causes and conditions. So this practice is shikantaza, is just sitting. But it isn't sitting for the sake of our own calmness only, for our own happiness. It's not just calm abiding practice. The two main types of meditation practice in the Buddhist tradition, calm abiding practice, by being still and calm, and secondly vipassana, the insight into the reality of the three marks of existence, of no self, of impermanence, and of the suffering, the dukkha of existence. So silent illumination practice is silent, so it is that calm abiding practice, and it is vipassana. It is the insight into the truth of things. So shikantaza contains everything. Everything is included in this practice. Hongzhi warns us. But if in illumination silence is lost, then aggressiveness will appear. But if in silence illumination is lost, then you will become turbid and leave behind the Dharma. But when silence and illumination both are operating and complete, the lotus flower opens and the dreamer awakens. So Hongzhi warns us that we can't just turn in on ourselves when we're sitting Shikantaza. We can't just climb into our own safe padded cell where the world is locked out and we are safe in that silence. No, there is also the illumination of no self. We come out and we meet all existence. These writings, by the way, I have to thank Taigen Dan Leighton in Cultivating the Empty Field, where he's translated a lot of these early Chan Masters' poems. A wonderful book from a great scholar of the way. So Dogen comes along in the 13th century and he says, studying the Buddha way is studying oneself. That's where we begin. We begin studying the self. By sitting still, we begin to see ourselves. We begin to notice things about ourselves. Studying the Buddha way is studying oneself. Studying oneself is forgetting oneself. Forgetting oneself is being enlightened by all things. It's very like that silent illumination understanding of sitting there, then the environment as the self is forgotten, and then we move even beyond that. Being enlightened by all things is causing the body-mind of oneself and the body and mind of others to be shed. There is seizing the traces of enlightenment, which causes one to forever leave the traces of enlightenment, which is cessation. So, Master Dogen himself is re-articulating these teachings of the great Chan Masters. So, we sit there and our self is revealed. And then we are freed from ourselves. So at this time of year, Rohatsu, we remember that freedom and that liberation that Shakyamuni Buddha brought into the world.